Welcome to the Frisco Skirt Sew Along. This is lesson 2, so if you haven't seen lesson 1, you should probably go check that out first and then come back here. In this lesson, I'll show you how to assemble the skirt panels with French seams. Quick note, this pattern uses 5/8 inch seam allowances unless otherwise noted, and that is actually different for this first step for these French seams. If you've never done French seams before, do not worry. We're going to walk through the process. They are a great treatment for lighter weight fabrics, such as this rayon. Creates a nice, strong and sturdy seam where serging or zigzag stitches along those raw seam allowances could create puckers or extra bulk. Plus, you can make this skirt without a serger, and I do like that. Now you can skip the French seams if the fabric you're using can support that. Just use 5/8 inch seam allowances, finish the raw edges however you'd like, and press them open. But we're going to do French seams today, and again, I'm going to walk you through the process. The hardest part of French seams, for me, maybe for you too, is remembering to start with the layers wrong sides together. If you're used to sewing right sides together as you do for normal garment construction, this is going to feel wrong, but that's okay, just go with it. Here I've got the center front panel wrong side up on my workspace, and I've got my front side panel wrong sides together along this right edge. We're lining up these raw edges. I've pinned, and I'm just going to take it to the machine and stitch this first seam with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I've already got my Microtex needle ready to go, so I'm going to do that seam now. First seam done. Next, I'm going to come in and trim this seam allowance to 1/8 inch. Don't be shy here. You actually do want to trim this down pretty close to your initial stitch line, or else when you sew your next seam, you'll have little frayed bits of fabric sticking out of it. Next up, I am going to press this seam flat and then press it with right sides together. As you can see with this tricky fabric, you just have to kind of go slow and get it done. But I've sandwiched that seam right in the middle of that fold. And next I'm going to stitch this seam again using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, we have finished our first French seam. Let's see how I did. Nice, I got a little fray peeking through, but that's okay. You can go back and trim that up. I'm first going to go ahead and give this a nice press, and I've got the rest of the skirt panels assembled, so I'm going to attach this front panel to the back pieces, and the process is pretty simple. You just work your way around the skirt. You could also go ahead and stitch those in steps and do all of your panels at the same time in each step. But I've chosen to go seam by seam. Either way works for you. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up my skirt panels, and then we'll move on to plackets. Once you have your skirt panels stitched together, the next thing that you need to do is to create the self placket on the 2 front vertical edges of the skirt where they overlap. That's a really simple process. I've gone ahead and done it here. You're just going to fold that raw edge in a 1/4 inch, press it well, fold it again, and 1 inch and press well again, and then stitch along that first fold. If you are working with a drapey fabric and you are having trouble getting those edges to work for you, try using a little starch. I did that here and it made it a little bit easier, but otherwise just go slow and steady. You'll do that for both front edges of the skirt, and then you'll be ready to move on to the next step, which is attaching the waistband. So stay tuned for that.